Hey, let's give it up one more time for Molly. That was awesome. I don't know about you, but I'm fired up. That's some good stuff, right? Man, we got good things going on. Hey, I got to give a shout out to Melissa Harris from CMS. Every break, like there's a whole line of people, and she's here, and God bless her, she stayed. So good for you. Let's give her a big round of applause. Awesome. All right, it's the last session before we do the wrap-up. So they figured it was safe for me to get a microphone because it's the last session. So here we go. Michael Diaz is going to come up and talk to us next. I can tell you a lot of wonderful things about Michael. The first time I ever did a tour here at Misericordia, Michael was my tour guide. And Michael started out at the very ground floor. He was a direct care worker. He understood the program from the bottom up. And that was the tour that I got, and I'm telling you, to this day, is the best tour I've ever had of any facility ever. And that's why, one of the reasons, not just sister, because she's the big reason, but I love this place. I mean, I love this place. This is a wonderful place, Misericordia, and we all should strive to have the care that they have for our people. So I can't thank them enough. So thank you, Misericordia, for hosting us. I really appreciate that. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, Michael, come on up. That wasn't a great introduction. I will say, I was in New Orleans with Michael one time. No, don't talk about it. I can't talk about most of the time there because sister's here, but I will say he took the ghost tour, okay? You got to know a little bit about this guy. That's crazy. I didn't do it. Go ahead, Michael.
All right, thank you. All right. I'm supposed to stay on time, so I have my big timer here to make sure that, okay. So the point of this session is talking about creating sustainable community partners to enhance our day service options. And I think our executive and development teams do a really great job of creating community relationships to help do our fundraising efforts and our political needs that support our missions. And I think that there's lessons that we can learn from that we can bring to the program level that help us to drive home more and better opportunities for our folks. So that is what this is about. And I will be, one of our community advocates is here to join us that will be speaking when we get to that point. So where's our clicker at? Oh, here we go. Sorry, this is new to me. I didn't have a trial. Uh-oh. Sorry, folks. There we go. Okay. So we've heard a lot about heightened scrutiny and the challenges that are being faced residentially, but also we heard a little bit earlier that heightened scrutiny is challenging our facility-based services. There's lots of people that want to see everything we have here closed down and implemented in the community. And if you were fortunately took the tour yesterday, you got to see a lot of the things we offer. We have individuals that are involved in hydroponics and recycling and technology and self-advocacy, along with all the employment options in our micro-enterprises. And these advocates want to see all of that closed down, and instead they'd rather have them in the bowling alleys in the community. And what was actually told to me by one of these advocates is that, that you should close down your facility-based program and go to the bowling alley. And the logic is that if they go to the bowling alley enough, then they may meet a friend at the bowling alley that may know someone that has a job that they can introduce and recommend them to them for. So that's their strategy versus keeping our residents active, involved, and in a developing environment. So we're not really down with that. So the expectation that services are provided in community settings, scrutiny presumes that facility-based services are not a part of the community, and that all expectations that all day services can be provided in the community. and it's just unrealistic at best. It's a fanciful vision, especially when we're funded at a rate of, our best funding rate is for 5 to 1, so that's for our individuals with the most significant disabilities that require really one-on-one attention in community, and it doesn't even take into factor how do you support their hygiene needs, changing needs, adaptive appliance needs, food needs, medications, nutrition, supplements, and all that's supposed to happen at the bowling alley. I want to make one disclaimer about my presentation. Our national allies and representatives access is really careful to make sure that we reclaim that term community, that we are the community. But for the purpose of this presentation, when I reference community, I mean as anything that's not facility-based, okay? All right, so this is the trend, and a lot of providers are moving even aggressively towards community-based programming, but at what expense? And so I spent a better part of about 18 months, 2 years, seeing my provider community peers transitioning more and more to these programs, and as I heard about what they were doing and was seeing what they were doing, I just kind of found myself saying, no, 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 and this isn't right. And they're taking working age adults, just like about everyone here is a working age adult that's here because they're supporting employment, the vast majority of us, right? And they're taking our peers out of constructive educational environments and putting them into recreational settings. Some of the errors that I really was seeing was happening in our provider community became the pillars of what we said we would not do. These are like reverse pillars, so things we would not build our program on. One is our reliance on consumerism, so that providers are oftentimes utilizing their participants' money to engage in their day program, which when you rely on that to support a 25-hour Monday through Friday program, you're spending an awful lot of their money for money that they may not have, especially since you've taken them out of work environments. So, so reliance on consumerism, we all buy our toothpaste on the way home from work, or on the weekend we go shopping. We don't decide to pick up during the middle of the day to go take care of those, work day to take care of those chores. So reliance on consumerism didn't seem right. A reliance on recreation, again, we're taking work-ready or working-age Americans, and we are having them play all day. And I understand and value recreation and leisure. We all need that in our lives, but again, I took up golf for my 50th birthday, and I don't get to go off during work, I promise, sister. That's a weekend activity. We have a place to be. Everyone has a place to be. Excessive volunteering, I don't want too much pushback here. We believe in volunteering. Matter of fact, we're going to be talking about some of our volunteer opportunities, but programs are having a reliance on volunteer opportunities. So if I surveyed everyone here in the room and asked how many hours you volunteered outside of working longer hours for your employer this week, we probably wouldn't have a really exceptional number. But then we're taking work-ready adults that are then going into even close to profit settings, which they're not supposed to be, volunteering for as much as 20 hours a week or more. And so we're taking them, if they can volunteer 20 hours a week or more, they can work, that same amount. So volunteering should be a component, but it shouldn't be false relied on. And then, probably the worst and maybe most blatant is just out and out loitering. Like the idea is just go to the mall, and they're not spending money, they don't have money to spend, but they're gonna go to the mall 3 times a week and, sit in the lobbies, or go to the library. You can learn things at the library. And so, taking our 600 folks down to our neighborhood library to make sure they get off campus because we can't teach them here just seems wrong. Okay, so after 18 months of me self-listening to complaining, we engaged in a process of, if not that, then what? So if we weren't going to build a program based off of these false pillars, then what could we do? And so, we decided that rather than doing nothing, we chose to do something, okay? So rather than just complaining, if we can't do that, if we can't be out in the community 5 days a week, everyone, what can we do? And so, we also feel that demonstrating a willingness to have a strong community-based program allows us to defend more strongly our equal beliefs in facility-based programming. If we're fully resistant to having community-based services, then it kind of makes us in a weaker position to defend our facility-based program. So we see it as a complement to facility-based programming, not a replacement for. And again, if we can't get everyone out every day, we should be able to at least get somebody out every day. Okay, so in that process of reflecting that, our team came up with our 7 pillars of what we can do in the community. And I'm not going to describe them all. If you would like, we have a brochure, a quarterly report on our program here that's available at the back table, and that can give you more information. But the 7 areas that we felt that we could deliver a community-based program included work exploration, where they learned about work concepts, community exploration, they learned about their community, health promotions and wellness, educational and learning opportunities, cultural exploration, building their social network, and also spirituality. Spirituality rounds out the person, understanding diversity and culture. So that's what we decided to build our program on. So we started Engage Chicago, which Engage Chicago began as a pilot in 2016 with the intention to provide 50 participants a week, a weekly community experience that's based on learning. So to make that model work, we developed 10 cohort groups, with each group having a half day of classroom in the facility setting, followed by a half day of applying that lesson in the community. The classroom activity was to prepare for the community learning experiences, and we prioritized participants that did not already have community employment or other community relationships already in place. We want to, really concentrate on the people that needed that community element. So from 2016, the pilot grew pretty quickly to 90 participants having at least one community experience a week. And as you see from the slide, we've at the time this slide was prepared, which is probably about a month ago, we're up to having 577 experiences, educational, learning, meaningful experiences since the inception in 2016. And now we will be growing the program by another 40 participants and for this next year. And we are concentrating on we've done this successfully. Now we're trying to work with individuals with more significant disabilities and how to have them in the community. So that's really our next frontier besides growing Engage Chicago in general. So during that pilot time, we did come across the challenges. That's why you call it a pilot, right? So you can learn from it. And so there was definitely some things that we learned about implementing a community-based program that if you have already, or if you think about it, you either encountered or might. One is the unpredictability. Once you leave the control of your facility-based settings, everything becomes more unpredictable. That can be the store hours changing. It can be, someone in the community that's disruptive to our group. You never know what that might be, so you just have to know that unpredictability is there. It requires a significant amount of preparation. If we're going to have meaningful, engaged opportunities, you have to have a preparation for that, right? So that takes time in itself. It's slightly more staff intensive than facility-based services. But we really have staff that are very committed to this program. They're very excited. They're very eager and driven to find new opportunities, and they make it happen. The picture you see there is one of the volunteer programs we'll talk about later, but we work volunteer and assisted living facility, and so that's Lori there helping out in the kitchen. Lori, who had community opportunities before. Transportation needs, I'm not going to spend time on that because that's definitely a choir moment. We all know that transportation is absolutely one of our biggest barriers. We have limited resources within the community radius of the provider, and certainly understand our folks that are more rural settings. I know that's definitely harder in one way because of less resources. Maybe it's another way that there's more familiarity and more, I'm not sure, but I think all of us are challenged by whatever the radius of travel that we can do and what resources we can find in there. It's definitely more difficult to provide for people with more significant disabilities, and I already kind of talked a little bit about what some of those realities are. And so keenly, the biggest challenge is sustainability, and really that's what brings us here today is how do we sustain this? I mean, you can do a really super dynamic outing today, but how do you deliver it day in, day out, year in, year out? And so making it work, sustaining it is our challenge. Really quick before I move to the next slide, I just want to explain a little more of those community-based, the facility-based and community-based connection. So an example of that is under work exploration, we'll explore different vocations. And so in our facility-based side, we may be preparing for careers in a grocery store. And so we will have a lesson plan where we talk about the grocery store, we really go into it as a study. So we look at role differentiation, salary differences, experience differences, duties differences, so that the residents can learn more about, have a broader view, not just I want to work in a store, but I want to be a butcher, whatever the case may be. And then we follow that up, having already prepared with the store for our visit on arrival, where we've arranged to meet with store managers who then, hopefully we can meet with like at least 3 different department people and talk at different levels. And then we also, so many of our community partners, like someone said, make the ask. People want to be involved. They go steps further with us and they allow us to do practice application filling or maybe even real filling out applications. They also will do spontaneous exercise job interviews with our folks. But the thing we practice everywhere where we go is having eye contact and a firm handshake and a solid greeting. And it's really super cool and impressive to see how our participants have become masters of that skill. So as we said, it's easier said than sustained. Anyone can come up with any folly statement and feel good about themselves. Any big grandiose position, it's much more difficult to make some of that a reality. We're delivering a community-based program that is easier said than sustained. It requires daily planning and replanning. And then that planning and replanning lends to the challenge of unpredictability. When you have that whole program set up to meet with the store manager and they get called to district, whatever the case may be. The inevitability of falling back onto reliance on consumerism, recreation, and the risk of loitering. If you're not committed to this project, if you don't have the right people in, it's going to slip right back into that. And then having a quality community program can best be sustained through developing and maintaining relationships in the community. And so that's really, again, goes back to my opening statements, exercising some of the skills that our executive and development departments use to represent us as a facility. We can use some of those same skills to represent us as programs that provide that meaningful experiences for our folks. Okay, so the relationships are what's crucial here. And if you want to move away from, it's having more than just the field trip. If you're planning a community-based outing tomorrow, and we're going to go to the zoo, and then you go to the zoo and you have fun at the zoo, and then you come home, and then there's nothing that links that into the next step. And we have a great relationship with our zoo. I'll talk about that later. But that concept of just a field trip, you're going to be doing just a new field trip every day for the rest of your program life. So developing a relationship is more time intensive than simply just creating a field trip. Field trip outings create one-off opportunities, here today, gone tomorrow, or repurchased tomorrow, the same experience. But a developed community relationship provides so much more. It provides a social network for our folks. It provides recurring and new opportunities. It can give you inside access, being able to do things that you bought the ticket to the zoo, you may not. Isn't really much more cool when you get to go into the giraffe house and talk to a giraffetologist, I don't know what they're called, and see it firsthand. It's a different kind of experience, right? Relationships that can lead to new opportunities. So people who are tied into your mission, people that can share your story for you and do some of the work for you. Go out and share your message and make introductions. They can make some of those phone calls and knock on some of those doors for you. And some of those folks, it could be families of participants. We have wonderful, active families. I think everyone is well aware of that by now and over the course of the days, how meaningfully they're involved. You know, we don't fear our families, we want them totally involved, and they're some of our best resources and assets and door knockers. And then also current and former staff and volunteers. You know, once you're kind of part of the Misericordia family, you have the opportunity to take care of your family through your relationship building. Other things are local businesses, local groups and clubs, colleges and universities, cultural centers, park districts, churches, synagogues, any centers of faith. Time spent developing relationships can pay off big, and they can pay off in employment opportunities in the community, work brought into the facility, volunteer opportunities in the community for the participants, volunteer interests brought to the facility from the community, educational opportunities in the community, those brought onto the facility, donations, that's always helpful. And then, you know, but the ultimate pot of gold thing that I'm looking for is finding and developing new champions. And our last speaker referred to champions. And, you know, once you have a champion, champions are those community relationships that become catalysts themselves in the community for the participants and providers. So champions will, they'll knock on the doors, they'll pick up the phone and promote you. Champions tap into their personal resources and professional networks for new opportunities for your participants. They become your cheerleaders, tell your story, and far from a field trip, champions stick around and create those sustainable opportunities needed to achieve a meaningful community-based program. So I have a great privilege to introduce one of our great friends, which I will do in a moment. And I would like you, we're going to be meeting Amy. And so Amy Sheridan is a friend of Misericordia who became a friend through another friend of Misericordia, someone who worked for us and then went to work in a public position in our regional energy supplier, and she brought her experience from Misericordia into that energy supplier to create opportunities for people with disabilities to become energy conservation ambassadors throughout the Chicago area. And I'll just ask Jessica just to stand up as our Misericordia representative in our Energy Force program. So. Jessica loves to talk more than any of the speakers up here, so please be sure to stop by her booth and chat her up and let her teach you about energy conservation over lunch, okay? So Amy heard about this story from her friend and was inspired. Well, Amy worked for the Chicago White Sox. I think most people know that if you haven't been to Chicago, who they are. But so Major League Baseball, you know, kind of big time, right? And so Amy was inspired by Paula's story and wanted to know, like, what could we do with the White Sox in Misericordia. So Amy and we were linked by that friend, and we met and we talked and we heard out what they're interested in. And together we put together a wonderful program called the Fan Force, White Sox Fan Force. And who those folks are, they're not at the ballpark pouring pops and restocking the chips, but they're part of the White Sox up front and center marketing brand messaging program, welcoming people to park, providing courtesy decorations, giving handouts. They're pretty much probably the only people that work for the White Sox that are not asking them for money, you know. So about going to concessions or programs, they're there just to make people feel good and to provide them assistance. So that's a very important job. So we wanted to show you a piece that Major League Baseball did on that program. It's just about 90 seconds, and so if we can take a moment to watch that. Ron in the back, we're not having audio.
It's a brand new program this year. We're working with folks from Misericordia, and they're out here partnered with some of our Chicago White Sox front office staff, and they're here to greet our fans, answer any questions, and just make sure that people are overall having a great time.
Enjoy the game, folks.
They did some training at the beginning of the season, so they're well versed in everything White Sox, so they're doing a great job.
What we do is we greet the fans as they go through the gates, and we make sure that their experience with the ballpark is most comfortable, and we welcome them to the U.S. Cellular Field and hopes that they enjoy the game and have fun.
ComEd and Chicago White Sox have partnered together with this unique opportunity. We're so honored to have the Misericordia staff incorporated into our day-to-day operations here and as part of our team.
They come out and help greet our fans, help give people directions if they need to know where to go to pick up their tickets or where they're sitting, what gate is the best gate to use, and just to give kind of a positive, welcoming vibe to all the fans that are coming to the game.
The opportunity to be part of the White Sox family has meant a great deal. They've been well received here. It really makes them feel good about themselves. It gives them a sense of independence and belonging that's really important.
I work for Chicago White Sox and greet people that come in, and I'm a part of the White Sox team.
Misericordia, it's a facility for developmentally disabled children and adults. We strive to help individuals be as independent as they possibly can in all aspects of their lives. For some of our higher functioning folks, we have community employment opportunities, this being one of them.
The day that I heard that they were doing an ambassador program, I was like, wow, it's a very cool opportunity to have.
What a great group of people, and we couldn't be happier and have some really cool friendships now with some of them, so it's been a really great experience.
I liked it. It's good to be a greeter. You get to meet all the different kind of fans. You get to talk to them, and it makes me feel good because I know that we're doing a good job and we can help the fans out.
The funny thing about the settings rule is by the definition that they're promoting, that's considered segregated employment because it's two or more individuals that are served by a provider traveling in a common vehicle to a common location, a common employer to do a common job, and they consider that segregating. So that's the danger of rules. So Amy, after a few years of charge in that program, moved to a new employer, Sandbox. So Amy, as a champion to us, moved to the company Sandbox, and part of her condition of employment was that she wanted to bring Misericordia with her, and she had developed a relationship, that social network, with Micah as one of the individuals that was on our team, and she helped to change some culture with her employer. So I'm going to ask Amy to come into, upstage and just give you a little bit of perspective from the employer side.
Have to lower it a little, huh? Oh. Thank you. Look at that. Now I can see you. Thanks so much for the introduction, Michael. It's been such a great honor to work with you over the last 5-6 years, and I'm so glad that we were able to share my personal story with you today. But I wanted to take a little bit of time and kind of dive a little bit deeper into the kind of relationships that have been formed with people within both organizations that Michael referred to, meaning the White Sox and Sandbox. Sandbox is an ad agency downtown Chicago, and as Michael had mentioned, Micah and I have known each other for 5 years, and we have been working together for 2. I've been away from the White Sox about 3 years, but still keep in close contact and make sure the fan force is going strong. That's right. Thank you, Jessica, for taking care of it for me. So last spring training time is a really busy time for anybody who works for MLB. That's when you're planning and getting ready for the following season. And my former CMO and former boss sent me an email, and the email contained the logistics of the orientation and the training that the fan force goes through side by side with the White Sox employees who volunteer their time to greet fans at the gate, as you saw in the video. And he sent along a note and said, "Just thought you needed to know. We're back. We're doing it again. This program means so much to the White Sox, and I just felt I wanted to share that with you." that just kind of took my breath away, because it had been 3 years since I had left, and the experiences and the time that the residents shared with the White Sox employees, it was just very easy and meaningful partnership that is established very quickly and sustained all of this time. 5 years now they've been together. Is it 5 or 6? 6. Time flies when you're having fun, right? That's right. So it's great that the introduction to the residents created this sustainability for Misericordia and the partnership between the two organizations. So then I was introduced to Sandbox, and they wanted to hear about some of my experiences with the White Sox when I was talking to them about possibly moving over there for employment. And a lot of the fun questions came up, like, oh, how was the World Series? How was the All-Star game? Tell me all about Jim Thome's 500th home run, all of that fun, all those fun things. They happen to be Sox fans, of course, as well, so that didn't hurt. But they asked me what my favorite experience with working with the White Sox was, and I said, it's the fan force. And they wanted to know more about the fan force. So I explained the program, and just like you saw in the video, explained that. And Julie, the VP of Talent at Sandbox, said, well, can we bring Misericordia to Sandbox? Said, well, if that's a possibility, that'll make my decision to join Sandbox a lot easier. And so we did it. So she saw the opportunity, and saw how great the partnership was with the White Sox, and they were so open to letting that become part of Sandbox. And we brought Micah on as created a position for her as our office assistant. So Micah's been working for Sandbox for 2 to 3 years now. And has been such a valued member of our team. Our HR department, when I first started at Sandbox, we have since doubled in size. And so our Sandbox HR team rolled out some talent priorities as we continue to grow, to make sure that we're focusing on our culture and our community involvement and creating purpose for our employees. So that they're working with purpose. And that extends from, our receptionist and our creative team and everybody, and me, as well as Micah. So it's been a great opportunity to have all of our teams working together in creating purposeful and meaningful work for all of us. So most importantly, our leaders really value diversity and inclusion, and inclusion includes people with intellectual disabilities. And it's wonderful when a couple of weeks ago, Micah's parents showed up at Sandbox to surprise her at work, and she proudly walked her parents around our 3 floors of our office and introduced her to her friends in the office, and said, these are my parents, and I was with her, and every time we heard from the employees, we are so glad to have Micah. Thank you for sharing her with us. And it is just such a wonderful thing that once our employees were exposed to Micah, once our employees were exposed to the fan force, they felt connected, they wanted to contribute, and they wanted to be part of Misericordia and part of the residents. It's a very purposeful, meaningful relationship that we've created. And I just feel very grateful every day that the Sandbox and the White Sox embraced Misericordia, created their own relationships, championed for the residents, and made programs that, after they experienced it firsthand, were able to rally behind and create sustainability. So, thank you very much.
Okay, I've been asked to help us catch up on our time, so we're going to move as quick as possible, but be sure to contact me afterwards if you have any questions. But, our next individual profile I just want to talk about is one of our parent advocates. Rick and his wife Connie have two children young adults that are residents with us now, and Rick has always been passionate about employment opportunities for his children and for all children with disabilities. And so Rick and I worked with his employer, which is a large healthcare provider, it took more than a year to put forward what ultimately evolved into a sustainable volunteer opportunity. But the wait was worth it. And so we're in 2 locations, an assisted living facility and a hospital. And so the total number of people that had new opportunities every week and developed their network is 24 individuals. The eventual product with this healthcare provider is 19 positions within the assisted living facility and 6 at the hospital. So in this case, the participants get to be the giver instead of receiver. Our folks receive a lot, pro and con, but they receive a lot. And so it's a part of that, the dignity of work. It's also the dignity of being able to give back to others that is so meaningful. So we really appreciate that. We're going to watch a really quick snippet of one of our volunteers with the compassionate relationship of one of the individuals in the facility. So this is a resident assisted living facility that is near an end of life, and that song means a lot to her. And so this is like a reverse Best Buddies program where our residents get to be the buddy to others. All right. So we want to make a difference, but we do not approach the level of having excessive volunteering. We make sure that's a reasonable percentage of the week. It creates and sustains those weekly opportunities, and that volunteering impacts their lives. So the last profile that I was going to go over is this, and this is our friend Matt. Matt was a vice president at Brookfield Zoo, and which is a world-class zoo here in Chicago. He had developed a close relationship to Misericordia and really brought us together in a very significant way. Beyond field trips, together we collaborated on world-class learning opportunities, experiential opportunities. Some of our residents got to be in a veterinarian clinic while a lion was under sedation to be able to touch a lion, and his teeth, amazing opportunities. But we don't just take, we like to give too. So whenever the zoo would come, all of our programs across the campus would all do the study of whatever that is. So if we have an elephantologist that's coming to visit, all of our programs do something related to elephants. And then as they come in, we've had this entire show for them, and that's one of the ways that they're so committed to us. And then, Matt has moved on, but the friendship and culture that he helped establish has carried on, and we're only growing. And right now, I've been working for about 4 years on a program that's finally coming to fruition where our folks will serve as conservation ambassadors on behalf of Brookfield Zoo and the Forest Preserve District to teach energy conservation to kindergarten and first grade children. So not only do they provide the conservation education, but they also help to shape early in the years what children can expect of someone who may look different or live different. Back room, we're going to skip doing the video because we are running out of time, and I'm just going to finish this, a last summary of notes. So just relationship building considerations, so things to think about. You know, our approach has been not to force things, but to allow new relations and opportunities to grow organically. So in the case of this opportunity with the Brookfield Zoo, you know, didn't just take our ball and go home. I've been working through 4 different vice presidents moving this project along, and now it's finally coming to fruition, and it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. You know, Misericordia has been around since 1921, so we just kind of tell everyone, look, we'll be here when you're ready. You know, we'll keep the idea afloat. We'll work at your pace. You know, it's not a rush. So we try to be too quick to say no or to say yes. You don't want to say yes to something that's going to be too big of a commitment, but you don't want to be too quick to no because you may cut off an endless chain of opportunity. Yet the most important thing, you have to make sure that it makes sense for your participants, you know. So instead of saying why we can't, think of what we can do and what it would take. Help your potential community partner to see their vision through. Amy came to us with the vision, we didn't go to her, and my job was to help her to round that vision into reality. You know, don't leverage duty. I think the emotional play is becoming outdated. You know, rather we want to talk about mutualism. You know, what can we do, and what can we give and receive, as opposed to just continuing to perpetuate the receiving end. We treat our volunteer sites as we would an employer. You know, we don't offer more than what we can provide, and we make sure that we're consistently present and with quality. Tours are a great way to incorporate the emotional tie-in to your program. Show appreciation. We take nothing for granted and we celebrate together. And then lastly, just always keep it about the participant. It's only successful when it creates a new and meaningful opportunity for your participants. So that was my speed finish, but I welcome you to contact me, Michael D at misericordia.com. Again, if you're interested in our community program, there's the brochures on the back. It's one of our, like 2 quarters ago, but it's what we have. It'll give you a better idea. But thank you for your time and good luck with all your programs.